Imagine sitting in a cafe across from your boss's mother while she calmly stirs her coffee and tells you you're going to give birth, hand over your baby, take some money, and disappear. Like your child is a package and she's Amazon Prime. No feelings, no choice, just an order. That happened to me. Hey, my name is Naomi, and this is the story of how I went from the maid in a grieving man's mansion to the woman his whole family called a scandal, and how that same man ended up standing on live TV in front of shareholders and reporters just to say she is my family. You tell me if I was wrong, because even now I still lie awake sometimes, wondering if I crossed a line the night I didn't say no. It started with a staircase. A long stone staircase up to a mansion on Magnolia Hill. The kind of house you only see in magazines when you're sitting in a laundromat, flipping through old issues. White pillars, tall windows, perfect hedges, sunlight bouncing off every angle, and somehow it still felt cold, like light could touch the walls, but never really sink in. I remember clutching my worn thrift store purse so tight my fingers hurt, praying I wouldn't mess up this job interview because I really needed this job. Bus fare doesn't grow on trees, you know what I mean. The door opened, and this older woman smiled, like she'd been expecting me all her life. "Come on in, baby," she said. That was my first breath of relief. Mrs. Bennet. Short, round, gray curls, caramel skin eyes that looked tired, but gentle. She had that church auntie energy. The foyer was all marble floors and a chandelier that looked like it cost more than my entire childhood neighborhood. Everything was polished, dusted perfect. And yet the air felt lonely. Not empty, lonely. Mrs. Bennet walked ahead and said, "This house been quiet for a long time. Too long, if you ask me." I didn't ask why, but of course I knew. Everyone in town knew about him. Elias Washington. Architect. Widower. Lost his wife 2 years ago. Some people lose a person. Some people lose themselves. From what I'd heard, he lost both. I was supposed to be the new maid, not his therapist, not his savior, just the girl who wiped his counters and folded his shirts. But grief doesn't care what your job title is. It fills the house whether you're on the payroll or not. In the living room, I saw her before I saw him. Ava, his wife. She was in every picture on the mantel. Stunning brown skin, bright eyes, big laugh, frozen in every frame. You could feel her, and you could feel that she wasn't there. It made the room colder somehow. I whispered a tiny prayer under my breath for a woman I'd never met, because that's just how I was raised. Then I heard this little rustling sound behind the couch. A tiny girl peeked out. No words, just these big, scared eyes. 2 puff ponytails and a stuffed giraffe with one ear hanging down, like it had seen better days. "This is Zoe, Mrs. Bennet," whispered, lowering her voice like we were in church. "She's 7. Don't talk much." I crouched down and smiled. "Hi, sweetheart. I'm Naomi." She just stared at me. No nod. No wave. Then slowly took a step back and half hid behind the couch again. I didn't take it personal. Pain sits different on kids, but you can still recognize it. Then the front door opened, and everything in the house seemed to hold its breath. He walked in. No dramatic music, no slow motion, just a man in a dark tailored suit who looked like he hadn't had a real night's sleep since his wife died. Tall, broad shoulders, dark skin, neat haircut tie, straight shoes polished, and eyes that were there, but also somewhere else completely. That was my boss, Elias Washington. Mr. Washington, Mrs. Bennet said. He nodded, Mrs. Bennet. His eyes slid over to me like he was scanning a document, not a person. You're the new housemaid, he said. Not a question. A statement. Yes, sir. Naomi Carter, I replied, trying not to sound nervous. He didn't say welcome or nice to meet you. He just walked past his cologne, lingering in the air like a memory that refused to fade. I'll be in my office. No interruptions. The study door closed with a soft little click that somehow sounded like a wall going up. You ever walk into someone's story on page 300 with no idea what happened in the first 299 pages, but you can tell it was bad? That's what that house felt like. The first few days, I tried to be invisible. I cleaned, I washed, I followed the schedule Mrs. Bennet gave me. I learned that Zoe only ate the crusts if you cut them off her sandwich, that there were certain rooms where dust never had a chance, that his office door stayed closed almost all day. And I learned there were certain sounds that carried down the hallway, even through heavy wood doors. One afternoon, I was dusting near his office when I heard it. A sound so raw, my hand froze in midair. A choked sob. Then another. Not TV. Not a podcast. A grown man crying alone. I stood there, one hand on the doorknob, heart pounding hard. I knew it was him. I knew I had no business opening that door. So I didn't. I just stood there, whispered word help him, and let his grief spill through the crack under the door into the hallway where I was holding my feather duster like a shield. Maybe that's where it really started. Not in the bedroom, but right there in that hallway, where I didn't walk away. Fast forward a week and my life tilted. It was late. The house was quiet in that heavy way where every sound echoes. Zoe was asleep, Mrs. Bennet had gone home, and I was finishing up some chores. I don't even remember exactly what brought me upstairs. Maybe I was returning laundry, maybe I was just walking past. But somehow I ended up outside his bedroom. The door was half open, the lights dim. He was standing by the window dress shirt undone at the collar, clutching his late wife's wedding ring so tight his knuckles were white. I shouldn't be here. Mr. Washington, I whispered from the doorway, feeling like I'd stepped into a space that wasn't meant for me. He didn't look at me at first. His voice was low-wrecked. Then why didn't you leave Naomi? My chest was tight. Because you were on the floor earlier, I said. Softly. Shaking. Begging a woman who's already in the ground not to leave you. How was I supposed to just walk away from that? That got his attention. He finally turned, and I saw everything up close. The grief, the exhaustion, the guilt, all carved into his face. I'm a mess, he rasped. Broken. Wrong. You should run from me. I should have. Every sensible part of me knew that. I was his maid. He was my boss. He was grieving. There was power and pain and a lot of lines we were not supposed to cross. Instead, I took a small step closer. I'm not scared of broken. I whispered I grew up with it. His fingers hovered near my cheek, hand shaking. Tell me to stop, he said. Voice barely more than air. Please, say no before I do something I can't take back. My heart was beating so loud it felt like the only sound in the room. I knew this was the line. I knew once I crossed it, I couldn't go back to just cleaning his kitchen like nothing happened. But I didn't say no. I didn't move. And when he kissed me, soft at first, then desperate, like he was trying to breathe through me, I knew something in my life just shifted in a way I wouldn't be able to undo. If it were you standing in that doorway with a man that broken in front of you, what would you have done? The next morning, I woke up in the guest room next to the master suite, still in my clothes, heart pounding. My body felt like it knew something my mind had not caught up to yet. The house was too quiet. I got up, straightened my shirt, smoothed my hair, and went downstairs like I hadn't just slept next to the man who paid my wages. At the bottom of the stairs, I ran into Mrs. Bennet. "Baby, you okay?" she asked, eyes narrowing. "You look like you ain't slept at all." "I'm fine," I lied. "Just first week nerves." She didn't buy it, but she let it go. We walked into the living room, and there was Zoe sitting cross-legged on the rug, clutching her little giraffe. When she saw me, she stood up, walked over slowly, and wrapped her arms around my waist. No warning, no words. Just this tight little hug, like she was holding on to something she didn't want to lose. "That child likes you," Ms. Bennet murmured. "She don't warm up to folks easy." I hugged Zoe back and thought, "I'm not going to let you down." I didn't know yet how complicated that promise was going to get. A crash from upstairs cut the moment in half. Glass shattering. Sharp but final. Lord, that sounded like glass. Mrs. Bennet gasped. My stomach twisted. I knew somehow that it was him. "I'll go check," I said, and went up the stairs on shaky legs. The office door was cracked open. Inside, pieces of a crystal vase sparkled on the floor like broken ice. I recognized it from the mantel, one of Ava's things. He was standing over it, tie loose hair slightly mussed, breathing hard like he'd run a marathon in place. "Mr. Washington?" "Do you need help?" I asked from the doorway. He spun around. "What are you doing in here?" he snapped. It wasn't pure anger, though. It was something closer to panic. I swallowed. I heard the crash. "I just wanted to make sure you're okay." He laughed without humor. "Of course I'm not okay. Why would I be?" Then he glared. "And stop looking at me like that. Like what I asked. Like you pity me," he said, like the word itself was an insult. Those words stung more than they should have probably, because deep down, pity was part of it. Pity, and something else I didn't want to name. Last night. I started feeling my throat tighten. He cut me off. "Last night was a mistake," he said, and his voice cracked on that last word. "It never happened. Do you understand?" The way he said it, like he was trying to erase it not from his mind, but from reality itself, hurt more than I can explain. I swallowed hard and forced out, "Yes, sir." I offered to clean up the broken glass, desperate to have something to do with my hands, some way to be useful instead of just hurt. "No," he said quickly. Back-turned hands, gripping the edge of the desk. Shoulders shaking. "Leave it. Just leave." So I did. But as I walked out and felt the crunch of glass under my shoe, it hit me. Nothing between us was unbroken anymore. Not the vase, not that fragile night, and definitely not the easy distance we had before. Days went by like that, with him swinging between cold and polite, and me doing my best to stay professional, while my heart did somersaults every time I heard his footsteps. Then the storm came. One evening, the clouds rolled in thick and heavy over Magnolia Hill. Thunder shook the windows, and Zoe showed up in the kitchen with eyes wide and fingers digging into my apron. "Naomi," she whispered, "storm's coming." I knelt down and brushed a curl from her forehead. "It's just rain, honey. You're safe." But she shook her head. Mommy didn't like storms either. My chest squeezed. When the lights flickered, and then went out completely, she screamed and wrapped herself around my neck like I was the last solid thing in the world. I held her close, rocking her a little, humming some half-forgotten tune my mama used to sing. "You're okay," I whispered. "I've got you. I'm not going anywhere." Footsteps pounded upstairs, and Elias appeared at the top of the stairs. Silhouette framed in darkness. "Zoe," he called, voice tense. "I'm here," she cried, still clinging to me. He came down fast, knelt beside us, and she practically jumped into his arms. "It's okay," he murmured into her hair. Daddy's here. I stood up suddenly, feeling like I was intruding on a moment that belonged to them, not me. I took a step back. Then his eyes lifted, and he looked right at me. For once, no anger, no ice, just something raw and complicated. Thank you, he said quietly, for staying with her. You don't have to thank me. I whispered, I care about her. Lightning flashed across his face, and I saw it. The exhaustion, the guilt, the confusion. And maybe something else. Later that night, after dinner by candlelight, and Zoe safely tucked in, I went to the laundry room to fold linens, because sometimes repetitive tasks are the only thing that quiet your brain. Rain still whispered against the windows when I heard unsteady footsteps. He appeared in the doorway, drenched hair, messy shirt clinging to him. Eyes distant. Mr. Elias, I said, correcting myself. Are you all right? His knees buckled a little, and he caught himself on the wall. No, he said hoarsely. Just tired. Tired of pretending I'm fine. He slid down the wall, sat on the floor, and buried his face in his hands. Something inside me shifted again. I sat down across from him, not caring that the floor was cold tile. Then, don't pretend, I said softly. He looked up, eyes full of despair. Why did you stay that night? He asked. Why didn't you run? I swallowed. Because you were breaking, I answered. And I couldn't walk away from somebody in that much pain. He looked like my kindness hurt him more than his grief. I don't deserve that. He whispered. You deserve healing, I told him, and someone to care when you're falling apart. He reached for my hand. I let him take it. No kissing, no touching beyond that. But the way he held my hand, like it was the only rope keeping him from drowning, felt just as dangerous. Then my body decided to throw a plot twist of its own. The nausea started small. A little queasy in the morning, I blamed it on stress. Then I found myself bent over the sink almost every day. I missed breakfast once, then twice. Then the smell of eggs turned my stomach, and Mrs. Bennet started side-eyeing me. You sick baby, she asked one morning. Just tired, I said. Tired don't make you throw up 3 times before noon, she muttered. I knew. Deep down I knew before I took the test. But seeing those 2 lines appear still felt like the world tilted under my feet. My cousin Tasha came by one day with a plastic bag and a look on her face that said she was about to force the truth out of me. She dumped 3 pregnancy tests on the table. Aunt Lorraine said, "You've been looking strange in the eyes," she said. So here, I tried to protest. She just crossed her arms. Girl, you need to know. Minutes later, I was in the bathroom staring at a stick like it held my fate. When I came out test in my shaking hand, my knees gave out. Positive, I whispered. Yeah. That happened. I sat on the floor and cried while Tasha held me. He's my boss, I choked out. He's still grieving his wife. He already regrets what happened. And now this. What if he fires me? What if he tells me to get out? What if I end up raising this baby alone? You won't be alone, she said. You got us. But you do have to tell him, Naomi. Sooner or later. For a few days, I tried to hide it. I threw myself into work, avoided being in the same room with him longer than I had, to scrubbed floors that were already clean, just so I didn't have to think. But morning sickness doesn't care about your denial. Mrs. Bennet caught me leaning on the counter, pale and sweating. Baby tired ain't the word for what you look like, she said quietly. Finally, one crisp afternoon, I found Elias in the garden by the stone fountain. He was standing there, with his sleeves rolled up tie, gone jaw tight, like he'd been arguing with himself for hours. My heart climbed into my throat. Elias. "Can I talk to you?" I asked. He turned eyes guarded. "Is something wrong with Zoe?" "No," I said, "it's about me," he exhaled, like he was already bracing for impact. "If this is about that night, it's about what happened because of that night," I said, voice shaking. I took a breath that felt like it weighed 100 pounds. "I'm pregnant," I said. "About 5 weeks. I didn't know how to tell you." The whole world went quiet. Even the fountain seemed to hush. "You're what he asked." "Pregnant," I repeated. His face changed. Not joy, not shock. Something harder. "Naomi," he said slowly, voice dropping. "Are you trying to trap me?" The words hit like a slap. "What?" I gasped. "No. I would never." "You expect me to believe this wasn't intentional?" He snapped. "A maid living paycheck to paycheck. Now suddenly you're pregnant with your employer's child. You think I'm stupid." Tears burned my eyes. "Elias, listen to me. I swear I didn't plan this. I didn't even know for weeks." "Women always say that," he muttered. "Women always know." That one cut deep. "Stop," I cried. "Why would I trap someone who can barely look at me, who is still in love with a ghost who won't even let me help him? Why would I trap a man who's not even sure he wants me around?" For a second, guilt flickered in his eyes, but pride and panic drowned it out. "This is ruining everything." He whispered, "My reputation, my peace, my daughter's stability. Naomi, how could you be so reckless?" I pressed a hand over my stomach, like I could shield the baby from his anger. "I didn't do this alone," I whispered. "You reached for me. You kissed me. You held me like I was the only thing keeping you from falling apart." He shut his eyes like the memory hurt him. "That night," he said, voice almost gone, "was a mistake." I felt something inside me just break. "Then the baby," I asked softly, "is the baby also a mistake?" He opened his mouth, but nothing came out, and that silence was worse than any insult. 2 days later, I passed out on the dining room floor. Stress, dehydration, not eating enough, because everything made me sick and scared. My body gave up pretending it could carry the weight of all of it. I remember polishing the table, then my vision going fuzzy, then nothing. Mrs. Bennet screaming my name, a thud, then waking up to bright lights and the sound of a monitor beeping steadily. When my eyes focused, Elias was there. Not the cold, controlled boss, but a man with his heart in his eyes and panic written all over his face. "Naomi," he kept saying, "please wake up. Please, God, let her be okay." The doctor explained that I had fainted from dehydration, low blood sugar, stress, that early pregnancy amplifies everything that I needed. Rest, food, less emotional strain. He also said something that changed the whole tone of the room. "The baby's heartbeat is strong," he said. "So far, the baby is okay." I turned my head toward Elias and saw him go from white to just cracked open. He shut his eyes, let out a sound that was half sob, half relief. "Thank you," he whispered to nobody in particular. Later in the hospital room, it was just the two of us. He stood near the foot of the bed for a second, then walked closer. "Naomi," he said quietly, "I'm sorry for what I said in the garden, for accusing you, for acting like you did this to me. You didn't deserve that." I stared at the wall for a moment before looking back at him. "You think I trapped you?" I said, voice small. "You think I used you?" He swallowed. "I was scared," he said, "but that doesn't make it okay. Seeing you collapse, hearing the doctor talk about stress and dehydration and pregnancy, I realized how badly I've handled this. I didn't forgive him instantly. I'm not that simple. But something inside me shifted. Not enough to trust him, but enough to listen when he said softly, I want to do better. I don't know how yet, but I want to. A few days later, we had that ultrasound. Dark room cool gel on my stomach, the machine humming softly. Zoe held my hand, eyes wide, and Elias stood on my other side, stiff and silent. Then the doctor turned the speaker on, and we all heard it. Lub-dub, lub-dub, lub-dub. Tiny, steady, absolutely real. Is that the baby? Zoe whispered. Yes. The doctor smiled. That's your little brother or sister. I covered my mouth and cried. Elias stared at the screen like he'd just seen a ghost and a miracle at the same time. That's my child, he whispered. Right there, something fundamental changed in him. You could see it. He wasn't just carrying guilt for a night anymore. He was carrying the reality of a new life. And this is where the story flips. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. The in-laws made their move. Vanessa, his late wife's sister, showed up at the gate one night, all sharp edges, and designer clothes demanding answers about rumors. The staff had been whispering. Neighbors talk. People always talk when the rich slip up. You got the maid pregnant, she sneered outside, while I listened from the kitchen window. Do you have any idea how cheap that looks? Do not talk about Naomi like that, he snapped. That part shocked me. Your wife's barely been gone 2 years, she shot back. And you knock up the help. Don't tell me this wasn't planned on her end. She is carrying my child, he said. You will respect her. Vanessa laughed. We'll see about that. Then came the cafe. His mother-in-law telling me point blank that I would give birth, and then hand the baby over, that they would raise the child with Washington values, that I would be compensated and disappear. I'm not giving up my baby, I said, voice shaking. You will, she replied, calm as ice, or you'll learn what it means to fight a family with more money and power than you can imagine. I'm not fighting anyone, I said, standing up. I'm protecting my child. She smiled like a snake. Then this is war. What I didn't know was that Elias had followed me. There, watched me walk out of that cafe crying, and something in him snapped clean. He drove to his in-laws' estate, walked into that cold, perfect house that still smelled like his late wife, and faced her parents. They called me names, said I was a mistake, said the baby would be better off in their world. They told him to think of his daughter's future, his family's name, his company, his status. They told him to give them the baby. You think I would abandon my child? He asked, voice dangerously calm. You will if you care about our legacy, they said. Right then, he pulled out a thick envelope and dropped it on their marble floor. Legal papers, full custody filings, restraining order motions. He told them if they came near me again, they'd be violating federal law. Told them he loved their daughter, but she was gone, and I was not her replacement. I was someone new who deserved peace, and the child I was carrying was his, and he would protect us both with everything I have. That was the twist. The man who once asked if I was trapping him now went to war for me. He came home that night, walked into my room, and said I confronted them. I chose you. I filed papers. They don't get to threaten you again. I stared at him, stunned. You did all that for me? I asked. For us, he said. Stepping closer, Naomi. I can't promise I won't mess up. I can't promise I'll be healed overnight. But I can promise I am done. Letting anyone treat you like you don't matter. You'd think that would be the end of it. But this is real life. There's always another wave. Rumors spread through his business world. Board members whispered. Blogs started posting about the widowed architect and the pregnant maid. He sat me down and said, "I'm not your boss anymore. I terminated your employment. I don't want any power imbalance legally hanging over us. You're not the help in this house now. You're the mother of my child." Then he told me his plan. "I'm going to announce the pregnancy myself," he said. "At the board meeting. On camera. If I don't control the story, my in-laws and the gossip blogs will. I'm going to say your name. I'm going to say, this is my responsibility, not yours." My first instinct was panic. "Elias, once you do that, they'll come after me even harder," I said. "They already are," he replied. "The difference will be I'm standing there with you instead of leaving you alone." So he did it. He stood in front of executives, shareholders, journalists, cameras flashing, and said, "I'm expecting a child with a woman named Naomi Carter. She used to work for me. She does not anymore, and any inappropriate dynamic is my responsibility, not hers. She is the mother of my unborn child, and she deserves respect, not gossip." Somebody asked if his late wife's parents approved. He said, "My personal life is not dictated by people who believe they own it. And I've taken legal steps to protect Naomi and the baby from anyone who tries to interfere." I watched that live from the couch, hand on my stomach, tears rolling down my face. Zoe was beside me, squeezing my arm. "Daddy looks serious," she said. "He is," I whispered. Mrs. Bennet stood behind us, shaking her head, muttering, "That man finally standing up like he should have from the start." The backlash online was immediate. My phone exploded. Unknown numbers. Fake accounts calling me things I won't repeat here. One message said, "That baby isn't wanted. You trapped him." I dropped the phone and grabbed the railing, feeling my belly tighten. Another contraction. Mrs. Bennet rushed to my side. "Baby, breathe," doctor said. "No stress. You can't let them do this to you." When Elias got home that night, he looked exhausted but steady. I went straight to him and hugged him, my voice shaking. "You protected me," I cried. "You protected us." He held me close, then pulled back, hands on my cheeks. "Not enough," he said. "You're still getting threats. You're still scared. That ends now." That's when he brought in security. Real security. 4 guards in the foyer the next morning, earpieces, serious faces. I came down the stairs like, "What is all this?" He met me halfway. "This is protection," he said. "For you, for the baby, for Zoe, for all of us. Someone took a picture of you leaving the clinic and mailed it to my office with a disgusting message. That means someone has been following you. You will not go anywhere alone again. Not to the store, not to the doctor. Nowhere." It felt like overkill, right up until I remembered those messages and that cafe conversation. Then it felt like oxygen. One more scare. At a checkup, the doctor gently told me my blood pressure was creeping up. I'd lost a few pounds, and there was mild placental thinning. Nothing critical yet, but stress could turn this pregnancy into a high-risk one if I wasn't careful. "Your baby needs you calm," he said. "You cannot keep living like you're in a war zone." On the ride home, Mrs. Bennet looked at me in the rearview mirror and said, "You gonna tell Elias?" I stared out the window. "I don't want to worry him more," I whispered. "He deserves to know," she said. "And you deserve to not carry this alone." Back at the house, Zoe came running. "Naomi, Daddy's upset. Really upset." Aunt Vanessa came with more people. We walked into the living room, and there they were. Vanessa, his in-laws, and 2 lawyers, sitting like it was a courtroom with Elias standing by the fireplace, looking like a storm in a suit. They said they came to negotiate. He said there was nothing to talk about. I felt my body tense, my stomach clenched again. Vanessa made some cruel remark about me faking contractions for sympathy. That was it for him. "Get out," he said quietly. They argued. He shouted louder, "Get out of my house!" The walls shook. The lawyer scrambled. His in-laws gasped dramatically. But they left. He bolted over to me, dropped to his knees, grabbed my hands. "Naomi, look at me. Are you okay? Is the baby okay?" I could see the terror in his eyes. I knew right then, whatever else he was, whatever mistakes he'd made, he was not going to abandon us. That night, I found him sitting on the floor outside my door, back against the wall, eyes half closed, but still listening. "You don't have to sit out there," I said softly. "Come in, I don't want to be alone." He came in, sat carefully on top of the covers beside me. We didn't do anything but talk and breathe the same air. "You did something today nobody has ever done for me," I told him. "You chose me in front of people who made it very clear they don't want me here. I'll keep choosing you," he said. Even when it costs me. I believed him a little more that night. The next morning, he told me his next step. "Everyone knows about the pregnancy. Now," he said, "they know your name. They know the gossip. I'm going to make it clear, you're not just the mother of my child, you're my partner. I want the world to know I'm not ashamed of you. I'm grateful." That word hit me hard. Elias. "I don't want to be your PR project," I said. "I don't want to be some redemption story you spin for cameras." He shook his head. "This isn't about them," he said. "It's about you, me and the life we're building no matter how messy it started. I love you, Naomi. I know we didn't get here the right way. I know we hurt each other. But I love you." Honestly, part of me wanted to tell him to take those words back to save them until life was cleaner, more acceptable. Another part of me had been waiting to hear them since the first time he trembled, holding my hand in that laundry room. "I'm scared," I told him. "We're still grieving your wife. Your family hates me. The internet hates me. My body is tired and stressed, and carrying a baby who didn't ask for any of this. And you're talking about love." "Exactly," he said. "Because love is the only thing that gives all this chaos a point. We can do this, one day at a time, one choice at a time, as a family." That night, he did a smaller press briefing. No big stage, no huge event, just a calm statement, confirming that he was standing by me, that the baby was a blessing, that he loved me, and that no amount of pressure was going to change that. People rolled their eyes, called him weak, called me worse. But some people, strangers online, also said, "At least he's owning it. At least he's not hiding her. At least he's protecting his child, and the woman having it." When he came home after that briefing, I didn't hesitate. I walked up to him, wrapped my arms around his neck, and held him like I'd finally decided to stop waiting for the whole world to approve. Our baby kicked between us like they were agreeing. Today we're still messy. We're still figuring it out. Grief doesn't just pack its bags and leave because you decided to move forward. His in-laws still exist. People still judge. There are days when he goes quiet thinking about Ava, days when I feel like an intruder in a life that started before me. There are also mornings where Zoe crawls into bed between us, puts her ear to my stomach and says, "Good morning, baby." And I think, how did I get here? So now I want to ask you, was I wrong for not saying no that first night, even though I knew he was broken? And my boss, Was he wrong for reaching for me instead of a therapist or a friend? Do you think his family had any right to demand my child just because they had money, grief, and a famous last name? If a man admits he messed up, then spends the next months fighting his own blood, his own board, and the whole internet, just to stand beside you, does that make up for the damage? Or are some lines you can't uncross no matter what? If it were you, what would you have done? Taken the money and walked away? Kept the baby alone? Or gone to war like I did? I really want to know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Agree, disagree, drag me, defend me. Tell me where you think I messed up, or where you think I was just surviving with the options I had. And if my story made your day a little less lonely, or at least made you feel something real. Right, Mr. Hope, you made my day down there, so I know you stayed with me till the end.